Welcome back to Peston on Sunday. I'm delighted to be joined by the Prime Minister, Theresa May. Prime Minister, could I take you back to July the 13th of last year? You're standing on the pavement outside of 10 Downing Street, and you say that your vision is building a society, a Britain that works for everyone. And there's a huge amount in that address about lifting up poorer people. Every serious think tank, the IFS, the Joseph Rowntree Foundation, the Resolution Foundation, says that over the next few years, the poor will get poorer relative to the rich. That's not what you want, is it?
Well, you're absolutely right. When I stood on Downing Street back on the 13th of July last year, I set out my vision for a country that works for everyone, not just the privileged few. There were a number of elements of that. Some of that was of dealing with injustices that I feel in society today, and we've put in place a number of things already that will address some of those issues. I made a speech earlier this year, for example, about how we can put more into supporting people with mental health problems. I've set up a audit to ensure that we look at how the public services actually deal with people from different, from black and minority ethnic communities, a discrimination survey, looking at audit of public services. So setting in place the steps that actually help us deal with those injustices. But looking at those people who are, as I've said, perhaps struggling, they've in work, but they perhaps find it worrying about whether they've got job security. They're paying a mortgage, but they're in their home, but they find it a bit worrying about paying the mortgage. But sorry,
please.
But the important thing is to strengthen our economy so that we can ensure that we can create more secure jobs and higher paid jobs for people into the future. Now, doing that's about Brexit and getting it right. It's also about taking this country beyond Brexit.
But the current forecasts, based on the idea that actually you were going to be in power for the next few years, have incredibly slow earnings growth predicted by most economists. And at the same time, benefit changes introduced by your government are seen by, again, every analyst as disproportionately hurting the poorer. Is that something you will address if you are re-elected?
Well, there have been welfare changes that have come under the Conservative government. That's absolutely right. A number of reasons why we've done that. I mean, first of all, we're introducing a simpler welfare system in universal credit, but also a welfare system that helps to encourage people into the workplace. I think work is the best route out of poverty. And yes, we need a system that does provide support for those who need it, but I think we do need to incentivise people to get into the workplace. We also have to think, when we're looking at welfare, for the taxpayers who are paying for those welfare benefits. Some of the very people we've just been speaking about, who perhaps do find it difficult to make ends meet, are actually those who are contributing to the benefits of others through their taxes.
But if the gap between rich and poor were to widen on your watch, would you regard that as a failure?
Well, I want to see, absolutely, as I said last year, I want to see the country that works for everyone. That's about developing a stronger economy. You only do that with strong and stable government.
That sounds as though you think it would be a failure. If you say you wanted to work for everyone, then you want to lift up the poorest.
I want to lift up. What I want in this country is I want to see a country where people are able to get on in life and see a better future for themselves and their children and their grandchildren. That's about a whole range of issues that we need to address. It's about ensuring we see growth and prosperity across the whole of the country. It's about ensuring we provide opportunity for all, so that we have a good school place for every child. And in doing that, that we ensure that we're a meritocracy, that how you get on in our country is about your talents and your hard work. That's what I want to see.
But if we look at the tax changes that actually were introduced or promised since you became Prime Minister, which is the promise to raise the threshold for 40% tax and raise the tax-free threshold, again, all the work shows that that disproportionately helps people on above average incomes.
Well, what we've done by raising the threshold of the personal allowance is, of course, taken 4 million people out of paying income tax altogether. So 4 million people who were on the very lowest of earnings not paying income tax any longer. And the changes we've made mean that a basic rate taxpayer is about £1,000 a year better off as a result of those
changes. But even so,
changes.
most of the money is going to people who I think would be above your threshold of just about managing, and that must worry you, surely.
Well, but if you look at the tax, the percentage of tax that's being paid by the very richest, the top 1% of people are actually paying a higher percentage of tax, higher
but
percentage of
fair.
the overall.
You regard that as fair,
yes,
don't you?
but the point is they're paying a higher share of the burden, a higher percentage of the overall income tax than they did in any year under the Labour government. It is right that you get the right system of taxation. You know, the Conservative Party has always been a party that believes in lower taxation, and that's what we want to do for the future. We absolutely want to reduce taxes on working families.
So David Cameron promised £1 million essentially tax-free for couples on inheritance tax. Is that something that you think should be a priority?
Well, there are many people in this country who, because of what has happened to the property market, find themselves, people who are in fairly, what some people would consider to be ordinary circumstances, but find themselves potentially caught by this issue. That's been an important issue for a lot of people. But if you look across...
But is it a priority at a time of scarce resources?
If you look across what we want to do on taxes, we've no plans to increase the level of tax. As I say, as a Conservative party, we're a party that believes in lower taxation, and I think that's the key choice that people will face at the election, is a contrast between a Conservative party that does believe, that does want to reduce taxes on working families, that has, as I say, taken millions of people out of paying income tax altogether, and a Labour Party who want to increase taxes and whose policies would lead to them increasing taxes.
I mean, on that, we had John McDonnell sitting just where you were a couple of minutes ago, and he was very explicit that for those that they see as above middling incomes, they want to put taxes up. Given what you say your record as a party is on taxes, do you need to repeat David Cameron's triple lock, no rise in VAT, no rise in income tax, no rise in national insurance? Do you need to repeat that?
Well, I'm clear that we have no plans to raise the level of tax.
What does the level mean? I'm not sure what that means.
In relation to specific taxes, we won't be increasing VAT, but what I do want to ensure is that we are able to have
you definitely won't raise VAT. That's a 100% commitment.
But what I want to do is to ensure that when we do look more widely at the tax system, that what we say on the tax system, we're absolutely clear we can deliver on it for people. And also, as I say, I want to see us able to reduce taxes on working families. And that can only be done with strong and stable leadership. It can only be done with a strong and stable government, building that stronger economy.
But it does sound to me that what really matters to you, apart from VAT, is the sort of overall burden of taxation rather than micromanaging at this stage individual tax rates.
Well, I think it's important that we look at that overall burden of taxation. As I say, my desire, my instinct, and what I absolutely want to do is to be able to reduce taxes on working families. But we are only able to do any of this if we build that strong economy. And that's why it's important to have that strong and stable government that can deliver on that strong economy. I think Jeremy Corbyn's economic policies are nonsensical. I think they just don't add up.
Now, something remarkable happened over the last few years, which is actually almost the first time, certainly in recorded history, those who've retired have now larger incomes after housing costs than working people on average. Part of that has been driven by your triple lock protection for state pensions for older people. Actually, shouldn't you redress the balance more towards working people? Isn't it time for that triple lock to end?
Well, under a Conservative government, the state pension will still increase every year. Now, precisely how we calculate that increase will be a matter for the manifesto. But if you look, as you say, pensioners' incomes have improved. The changes that have been made to basic state pension mean that pensioners are £1,250 a year better off. And as I say, under a Conservative government, pensions would continue to increase state pensions would continue to increase every year. But the issue that you raised, the wider issue you've raised there, Robert, is a really important one about this intergenerational fairness. And that is a factor of a whole range of things. You know, there are people today who really worry about whether their children and grandchildren are going to have a better future than they did, than they've had. But it's about a range of issues. It's about ensuring that we have that strong economy, creating those secure and higher paid jobs. It's about ensuring we're building more affordable homes. It's about making sure there's opportunity for all through a good school place for every child, through ensuring we're giving young people the opportunity to get the skills to take on those high paid jobs.
So just to be clear about this, I don't think I'd be wrong, would I, to assume that you'll probably drop that 2.5% minimum increase for pensions?
You would be wrong to make any assumptions. As I said, precisely how we...
But it does sound as though you're going to a double lock, not a triple lock.
Precisely how we calculate that increase will be a matter for the manifesto. If you want to know what's in our manifesto, wait and read our manifesto.
So please don't go away, because we've got more from the Prime Minister in just a couple of minutes.
Well, looks like something's slowing you down. Whoa! Could be your engine clogging up with dirt. BP Ultimate with active technology removes dirt to help your engine perform at its best, so you can keep moving just like these guys. Keep moving with BP Ultimate.
The mega deals are on at Currys PC World. Save £200 and get free next day delivery on these large capacity 9 kilo LG washing machines. Now only £399. And save £120 on the Dyson V8 Animal. Up to 40 minutes runtime at our lowest price, £349. Plus, you can buy now and choose to pay nothing for 6 months with your plan. Flexible credit you control. Apply online or in-store today. At Currys PC World, we start with you.
Every day we just get on with our busy lives. But when was the last time you paused to think about your future? At Skipton, we take the time to talk about it. Whether it's making the most of your savings, planning the retirement you want, sorting out your pension, or helping you own your own home, we're with you for the long term. Skipton Building Society, for your life ahead.
Hello, what do 19 million of us in the UK have in common? No, it's not how many people are terrified of moths, like I am. 19 million people have Freeview. Why would you pay for your TV when you can enjoy your favourite shows for free? It's the other way to watch... Oh my God, there's a moth in here!
Right now at Benson's, be better off with £100 off this Rialto bed frame. But hurry, offers must end soon, only at Benson's.
Cetraben has helped millions of people repair their dry and eczema-prone skin. Find it at leading retailers and pharmacies. Cetraben, as close to your skin as you are.
We've just been on a family holiday.
So we need a holiday.
Can you hear the pitter-patter of tiny feet? No. Lovely, isn't it? Definitely no kids.
I thought they had a no-kids policy here.
Book now for great deals. Warner Leisure Hotels. We're all grown up.
So, you're looking for ways to keep the family entertained. Tesco Mobile can help with that. Across a range of handsets like this Moto G5, you'll get 2,000 extra Clubcard points. That's a tasty £20 off your Tesco shop. Or turn your points into Clubcard vouchers and make them go even further when you treat the family to a night out at the cinema or a bite to eat with one of Tesco's Clubcard partners. But hurry, this offer ends on the 21st of May. That should keep the little monsters quiet for a bit. Smile. You're on Tesco Mobile.
understand what brings a Maida girl to the police.
I thought the force could do with more posh swords, so...
Gov, you need to see this.
Missed it the first time around. Prime Suspect 1973, Wednesday the 10th of May on ITV Encore.
Welcome back. I'm very pleased that the Prime Minister's work visa has been extended and she's still with me. But first, here's Anushka.
Thanks, Robert. Lots of reaction. The hacks have spotted a story because the Prime Minister has followed John McDonnell in saying there will be no rises in VAT, although that clearly leaves wriggle room in other areas. Others are commenting on the issue of inequality. We have an Evening Standard journalist here saying Theresa May dodges whether it will be a failure if the gap between the rich and poor grows on her watch or if she'll help the poorest. There's also some reaction on the issue of Brexit. Francis O'Grady here, the General Secretary of the TUC, saying can the PM guarantee that UK workers' rights won't fall behind the rest of Europe? Well, talking about Brexit, there is something this week that has had Brexiteers applauding but might be quite sad for about 48% of you. Look at this European Commission map. They've greyed us out already. It's a bit like deleting your ex from Facebook. Now, the Prime Minister says she wants to remain Bezies, but if you'll allow me to flog the analogy here, she is ready to press the unfriend button if necessary. She has said again today that no deal is better than a bad deal. But what does no deal actually look like? Well, this is what the experts warn of, if you believe them. They say that British citizens living on the continent could be at risk of losing rights, for example, to free healthcare. They also warn of tariffs. WTO rules would put 36% on dairy products, a worry for British farmers. And that is a car park on the M20, because if there is no agreement on customs, then there could be onerous checks in places like Dover. Now, some civil servants are already looking at the possibility of no deal, and given the tough talk from this lot yesterday, perhaps it could be more likely. Robert.
Prime Minister, just to pick up on that, do you genuinely in your heart of hearts believe that no deal would be better than a bad deal?
Yes, I do. I wouldn't have said it if I didn't believe that. But what I also believe is that with the right strong hand in negotiations, we can get a good deal for the UK from these negotiations. That's what I want to do, but I believe you need to have strong and stable leadership in order to be able to achieve that.
But if no deal is a realistic, non-disastrous outcome, shouldn't you be planning now to expand warehouse capacity at ports, recruiting people to do customs checks? Because we'll need all of that if we were to crash out.
I'm very clear that I want to go in there with a strong hand to negotiate a good deal for the United Kingdom. And actually,
but wouldn't your hand be strengthened if you prepared Britain now for no deal?
I think my hand will be strengthened if at this election people voting in the national interest vote for the leadership, the strong and stable leadership and the strong and stable government that this country needs. But if we look at what is happening in relation to the negotiations, which of course haven't formally started with the European Union yet, if you look at the guidelines they've set out for their position and my Article 50 letter, there's a lot that actually we agree on, wanting to have that good and special partnership into the future. Wanting to be able to give reassurance to EU citizens living here and UK citizens living in those other 27 countries. There's a lot that we can agree on between us, but of course the negotiations will be tough at times. We've seen that from some of the comments that have come out recently.
Now, they want us to hand over quite a lot of money to them, the money they think we owe under our previous budget promises. They said yesterday in their guidelines that they would not start to talk about trade with us, a future trade deal, unless we agree the elements of what we will pay them. What do you think about that?
Well, what I think is that, first of all, it's important that at the point at which we leave, we know what the future relationship is going to be, and that's about the future trade relationship, but also cooperation on other areas like security, for example.
Does everything have to be nailed down at that point?
I think it's important that when we leave, what I don't want to see is a cliff edge where suddenly nobody knows, 1 minute after midnight on the appointed day what their situation is. That's why we've said we'll bring EU law into UK law so that there's a smooth process. And I think at that point people should know what the future trade relationship is.
Broad parameters of the trade relationship.
Well, they should know. I think we should be looking to negotiate a comprehensive free trade agreement within this period of time that we've got.
You think that's realistic, do you?
Well, I do, because if you think about it, we're in a different position from other countries. It's not like we're a third country who's starting negotiations with them. We've actually been part of the European Union. We still are at the moment, a member of the European Union. We're operating on the same basis. So we're starting from an entirely different point. So I think that actually us negotiating a comprehensive free trade agreement will be easier, should be easier, and that we can do that within the time frame we've got.
Are you prepared to wait till at least the basis of what we pay them is agreed?
Well, we will start the formal negotiations in June. There are a number of things that I think that we need to agree at a very early stage. The issue of EU citizens living here...
So you agree with them
UK
that that's
citizens.
got to be agreed at an early stage?
I want that to be, yes, that was in my Article 50 letter. It's in their guidelines. I think there's goodwill on both sides.
There.
So we get
Is there a
reassurance on that.
dispute, though, about how fast we can progress this issue on budget payments?
Well, if you look at some of the things that have been said, it's been very clear from a number of leaders that they actually want to get on to the overall package, if you like, the trade issues, also fairly quickly through this process. But they
were also very clear in the guidelines that they will negotiate as one. We can't look to individual leaders who are sympathetic. We've got to look at where the weight of opinion is, and the weight of opinion appears to be that they will not talk trade with us until they know what we're going to pay them, if not to the penny, at least in broad terms.
They have, what they've said is that they want to start those discussions before they start discussing the issues around trade. You're right, they're very clear they're going to negotiate as 27. But I think exactly this sort of issue is why it's important that we have the right leadership in this country to ensure that we've got a strong hand in those negotiations and that we're able to take our arguments and our message through those negotiations and get the right deal at the end of those negotiations.
But in your terms, you know, since you want to be Prime Minister, you already had the right leadership. And they're saying the size of your majority doesn't matter at all.
Well, I think it's important that we have a strong hand. I believe a mandate. I genuinely believe that this is the most important election the country has faced in my lifetime. And I think it's important that everybody goes out and votes on June the 8th. Obviously, I'm around the country asking people to vote for me and my team on June the 8th, because I think we have that, would give that strong leadership, that strong and stable government that's necessary for these negotiations. But the reason why I thought it was important to have this election was having done the first job, if you like, in Brexit, which is sending that Article 50 letter, triggering the formal process. It was clear that other parties wanted to frustrate the negotiations, disrupt the negotiations and frustrate that process. I believe it's important to have that mandate, to take a strong hand into the negotiations, because this is about our future. It's about getting the best deal for the United Kingdom, but it's also about a government of 5 years of certainty and a government that can take this country not just through Brexit, but beyond.
Some people feel you haven't told them enough about your vision of Brexit, given that you are making this election a mandate for you to negotiate our exit.
Well, I've set out in my Lancaster House, I made a speech in January in Lancaster House, setting out our objectives in relation to Brexit, and I noticed Francis O'Grady there had tweeted a question about workers' rights. I was clear in that speech that I gave that one of our objectives is the protection of workers' rights.
So they
indeed,
will
I
not
want to
be.
enhance
So you give a
workers' rights.
commitment they will not be eroded.
We want to protect workers' rights and indeed look at enhancing workers' rights. It's why, for example, I've asked Matthew Taylor to do this study on the employment market at the moment to say, have we got the right protections in place and the right regulations in place for what is a changing type of employment market?
Now, we did ask our viewers what they wanted to ask you, and I absolutely promise you we haven't fixed this, because by far the largest number of questions were about why you won't participate in a TV debate. Is there any chance you'll change your mind on this? I mean, what this chap called Fox says is you would have a much bigger audience, particularly with young people, if you did this.
there isn't going to be any change, because the sort of campaign I want to run, and the sort of campaign I'll be involved in, is one that is about getting out and about, getting across the whole country, meeting people from all sorts of communities, getting into communities that have felt up till now that politicians have ignored them, have not been taking their concerns into account. I want to get out there and about. That's what this is about.
Now, unfortunately, we're almost out of time. I've got two quite quick questions. One is, there's a report in the Sunday Times that you are looking at giving tax breaks to encourage people to save for social care, for their costs when they become too frail to look after themselves. Is that something you're thinking about?
We are looking at how we can ensure that social care, we have a sustainable system of social care. A lot of pressure on social care. I've said it's to be dealt with in short-term measures, which is the £2 billion extra we put into social care in the budget. The medium term, we need best practice across the whole country.
Encouraging people themselves
and
to save with perhaps a tax break, that's something we're thinking about, isn't it?
Longer term, we need a sustainable system of social care. This is one of the issues that I think, one of the long-term issues for this country that we need to address. And again, these are the sorts of issues that we'll be looking at in our manifesto.
Now, I also noticed in your Mail on Sunday interview, you chose your 3 favourite dishes. They all sounded absolutely wonderful to me. Was nothing for the vegetarians, though. These were quite meaty.
Yes, actually, they did all have. But then I do cook vegetarian dishes as well, I can assure you. But
that's a great relief.
Those are my favourites.
Anyway, very nice to have you with us, Prime Minister, and hope to see you again within the course of what's going to be a very exciting campaign. So my thanks to the Prime Minister. We'll be getting reaction from our gurus in just a couple of minutes.